The woman who loved my father. My name is Lucas. I was born under a sunset sky in a quiet Nevada town where the wind carried stories and the mountains hid secrets older than memory. If I had known then what life had waiting for me, how love can rot, how truth can hollow out a man, I might have begged the universe to rewrite the script of my existence. Thank you for coming along to listen to my painful story. Drop me a comment and tell me if you have been heartbroken before I lived most of my adult life in the United States, drifting between city jobs and desert nights, trying to build a version of myself strong enough to outrun the wounds of my childhood. I was in my late 30s when the story I am about to tell you finally left me broken. I used to believe that pain made a man wiser. Now I know it only makes him quieter. My father, William Hart, though everyone called him Will, was the kind of man people admired before they understood him and feared afterward. He was handsome, charismatic, and dangerous in the casual way a wolf appears gentle when it's not hungry. Growing up, I always felt his shadow over me, larger, sharper, more admired, more desired. I fought all my life not to become him, yet everything around me seemed designed to compare us. I thought I escaped him. I thought I escaped that shadow. Then I met her, my wife, my heartbreak, my undoing. Her name was Evelyn. The beginning of the end. I met Evelyn on a cold autumn morning in Seattle, where I had moved for a new job. She stood under an awning outside a bookstore, her dark hair wet from the rain, her fingers trembling as she tried to fold a paper she cared too much about to let ruin. Her eyes, green, sharp, curious, looked up at me as though they already knew something about my soul. "Do you have a lighter?" she asked. I didn't smoke. I told her that. She smiled, and even the rain softened around her. "It's okay. I just thought maybe..." Later, I learned she always approached strangers like that, half joking, half wounded, always searching for something no one could give her. We spent hours together in that bookstore the first day, reading passages aloud to each other, arguing about authors, laughing about the way the rain kept trying to drown the city. She was warm, brilliant, gentle in the way someone becomes after life has bruised them more than once. She was nothing like my father. So I thought. Nothing like the women he chased, nothing like the people who carved themselves from secrets. I fell in love too easily. I had always been that way. Maybe I was desperate, lonely, hopeful. Whatever the reason, by spring she had become the center of my world. When I proposed to her near the waterfront, she cried so hard I thought her heart would outrun mine. "I want forever with you," she whispered. I believed her. God help me. I believed her. The first cracks. The first time she met my father was at our engagement dinner. He arrived late, wearing that familiar smirk that made everyone both impressed and uneasy. He hugged me, congratulated us, cracked jokes, poured wine, stole attention the way he always did. But the moment he saw her, Evelyn, something inside him shifted. And something inside her shifted too. It was subtle, a small tightening of her breath, a brightness in her eyes that had nothing to do with love and everything to do with recognition. I didn't see it then, but I felt it. An instinct, a tremor, the faintest warning. After the dinner, she asked questions about him. What was he like when you were young? Did he always have that presence? Why did he look at me like he knew me? I brushed it off. My father had that effect on people. I told her she was overthinking. But the questions kept coming, and the tension kept growing. A marriage built on sand. Our wedding was beautiful, painfully beautiful, the kind of day that feels too perfect to belong to the real world. She held my hands as if they were the last solid thing in her life. She cried through her vows. She kissed me like I was the only person she had ever wanted. And yet, The way her eyes followed my father when he arrived late to the ceremony felt like a crack in the foundation of our future. During the reception, they danced once, just once. But that one dance lasted my entire lifetime. They didn't touch more than the simple contact required by the steps, but their bodies spoke a silent language I could not translate. Her smile was too soft. His gaze was too fixed. They laughed in a way that felt like a secret. And I, stupid, hopeful, blind, told myself it was nothing. Marriage, for us, was fragile peace. She loved me, but she drifted sometimes as though pulled by a tide I couldn't see. She stayed awake at night, staring at ceilings, breathing too quietly, thinking too loudly. I asked her what was wrong. She said it was stress. But lies whisper differently than truth. The discovery. It was almost a year later when I learned the truth. The night was cold, bitter, the kind of cold that makes glass contract and bones ache. I was returning home early from work, something I rarely did then. I opened the door quietly, hoping to surprise her with takeout from her favorite Thai place. I heard her in the living room, talking in a trembling whisper, talking to someone she shouldn't have been talking to. "I know," she said softly. "I know it's wrong, but I can't stop thinking about you." My chest collapsed, my pulse vanished. The world narrowed into a pinpoint of sound, silence. Then her voice again, cracked with longing. "I loved you long before I ever met Lucas." The bag slipped from my hands. The food spilled across the floor. She gasped, turning toward me with the horror of a soul caught naked. "Lucas." My phone was already in my hand. The call history was already open. The name already there. Dad. The shattering. I don't remember all of what happened next. Trauma edits memory. It softens some details and magnifies others. She cried. I yelled. She begged. I broke. She swore nothing had happened. She swore they hadn't touched. She swore it was only feelings, only conversations, only a connection she didn't ask for. But betrayal doesn't require flesh. Sometimes the deepest betrayals come from the heart. She told me she had admired my father since she was young. She told me she had seen him speak at a conference years before she met me. She told me he had been the reason she studied psychology, the reason she moved states, the reason she believed in passion at all. She told me she married me because she loved me, but she could never erase what he meant to her. I asked her the question that nearly destroyed me. Did you ever love me the way you loved him? Her silence was the answer. My father's confession. When I confronted my father, he didn't deny it. That was the worst part. He leaned back in his leather chair, swirling whiskey, looking at me like my pain was merely another story to observe. "She's complicated," he said, "and she reached out to me first." "Did you tell her you loved her?" I demanded. He didn't answer immediately. Then he smiled, a slow, cruel, devastating smile. "Son, some things don't need to be said." I punched him, the kind of punch that splits knuckles and breaks history. He didn't hit back. He only looked at me with something like pity. "You can't save a woman from her own heart," he said quietly. "The slow death of a marriage." I tried to forgive her. God help me, I tried. We went to counseling. We took time apart. We talked until words became wounds. But every time I touched her, I felt him. Every time she hesitated, I saw his shadow. Every time she cried, I wondered who she was crying for. A man can survive being unloved, but he cannot survive being compared. In the end, she left. Not for him. No, that would have been too clean, too simple. She left for herself, for the illusion of a future that didn't include choosing between two men who had already destroyed her. But she wrote me a letter. A long, shaking letter, and in it she admitted the truth. I loved you, but I loved him first. Aftermath. My father tried to apologize months later. I walked away before he finished the first sentence. We haven't spoken since. As for Evelyn, sometimes I see her name in an email thread, a newsletter, a social media update. I never click. I never respond. I never open the door to the past again. But I think of her. More often than I should. More often than is healthy. Because love doesn't die cleanly. It decays slowly like wood left in the rain. Softening, splintering, turning to dust. Some nights I wake up and feel her beside me. Some mornings I hear her voice in my dreams. Some days I hate myself for missing someone who shattered me. But heartbreak doesn't ask for permission. It simply arrives and stays. The man I am now. If you ask people about me today, they'll describe a quiet man, a man who observes, a man who doesn't trust easily, a man who carries something heavy beneath his ribs. But I am still living, still trying, still learning what it means to rebuild from ruins. My heart is scarred, but not dead. My future is uncertain, but not empty. And though my marriage was a tragedy, though my wife loved my father, though my father loved himself more than anyone, I have learned something dark and necessary. Not all love stories are meant to be lived. Some are meant to be survived, understood. The letter I could not finish reading. 2 days after she left, a letter arrived. No stamp, no delivery mark. Just a simple white envelope slid under my door, as though the universe itself had delivered it while I wasn't looking. Her handwriting. I would have known it even if I were blind. Inside was a stack of papers, several pages written hastily, the ink slightly smudged, like she had been crying or in a rush, or both. When I touched them, they felt warm, as if her hands had only just let them go. I sat at the kitchen table, the one we bought when we moved in together, the one where she once told me she loved me while laughing over burnt pancakes. I unfolded the first page and began reading. Lucas, you deserve the kind of truth that wounds cleanly, not the kind that rots you from the inside. So here is what I never had the courage to say aloud. My fingers trembled involuntarily. I didn't plan to love your father. I didn't even plan to meet you. My stomach twisted sharply. Years ago, before I knew your name, before you ever held my hand in that bookstore, I saw your father give a lecture. It wasn't even about anything important, just a workshop about behavioral patterns. But something in the way he spoke, it changed something in me. Or awakened something. I don't know, I was drawn to him. I hated myself for it. But it never left me. I stopped reading for several minutes, breath caught in my throat. The kitchen around me blurred at the edges, as though the world itself was embarrassed to witness my humiliation. Eventually, I forced myself to continue. When I met you, I didn't connect the dots. You didn't look like him in the beginning. You were gentler, softer, kinder, quieter. I thought he was a past fantasy I'd outgrown. But then your father walked into the engagement dinner, and everything inside me recognized him instantly. It felt cruel, like fate had played a joke on both of us. My vision blurred, and I wiped my eyes angrily. I turned to the next page. I tried to choose you. I swear I did. I thought if I loved you hard enough, it would erase the part of me that still longed for him. But longing doesn't obey logic. I never touched him. I never kissed him. But I thought about it, more often than I should have. A coldness spread through my veins. You deserved better than being compared to your father. You deserved better than being loved in the wrong order. But I didn't know how to rewrite myself. I don't know who I am without this confusion, and that is why I had to leave. At the bottom of the last page, in tiny handwriting, she wrote, I am sorry that the part of me you loved the most was already broken before you arrived. I sat there for hours, unable to move, unable to breathe deeply. My hands shook uncontrollably. And then, I did something shameful. I ripped the letter in half, then in half again, then again. By the time I was done, the pages were shredded, like my sense of self. But as the pieces scattered across the table, I realized destroying the letter changed nothing. The truth remained, woven into the fibers of my memory. And the worst part was this: I still loved her. My father's shadow returns. It took a week before my father reached out. 7 days of silence, 7 days of nausea, 7 days of feeling like the floor beneath me had become unreliable. The message was brief. We need to talk. Dad. I stared at those words for a long time. The audacity, the entitlement, the certainty that I would reply. But I did. No, Lucas. 10 minutes passed, another message appeared. If you don't speak to me, you'll never understand what really happened. I didn't want to understand. Understanding is a trap. It pulls you toward the pain you're trying to escape. But curiosity is crueler than grief. So I wrote, 1 hour, my place. After that, don't contact me again. He arrived early. He always arrived early when he wanted control. When I opened the door, he stood there with that same calm expression, the one that made people trust him and made me want to scream. Lucas, he said softly, like he was the one grieving, like he was the one betrayed. I stepped back without inviting him in. He entered anyway. He looked around the house, scanning the empty spaces where her things once lived. His gaze softened with something I couldn't read: sadness, guilt, confusion, pride. Finally, he spoke. Your wife loved me long before she knew you were my son. I clenched my jaw. And you? I asked, my voice hoarse. Did you love her? His eyes flickered. A brief, unguarded moment, a crack in the armor. I don't know, he admitted, but I could have. Those words were knives. But I didn't act on it, he continued. I told her she needed to focus on her marriage. I told her she needed to let it go. Did she? I whispered. He looked away. No, he said quietly. She couldn't. I wanted to hit him. I wanted to break something. I wanted to scream until the walls shook, but instead I asked a question I never thought I would ask. Why does everyone love you first? He froze. Then, for the first time in my life, I saw him look small. I wish I knew, he whispered. The room with no windows. After my father left, the house felt suffocating. The air seemed thicker, harder to draw in. Every breath I took tasted like something old: dust, regret, memories that refused to die. I walked from room to room with no purpose except to confirm that she was still gone. She was. But her absence was not empty. It had shape, weight, temperature. When night fell, the shadows shifted strangely. They clung to corners that had always been harmless before. I told myself grief was warping my senses, that sorrow had rewired my perception of darkness. But something wasn't right. There was a door in the hallway I didn't remember. A narrow wooden door with peeling white paint, wedged between the guest bathroom and the coat closet. Every time I walked past it, the hair on my arms stood up. I had lived in this house for years. How could I forget a door? At first, I tried to ignore it, but grief has a way of pulling you toward the things you don't want to face. Late that night, when the silence became unbearable, I found myself standing in front of it. My hand hovered over the doorknob, my heart hammered inside my chest. The doorknob was cold, colder than metal should be, colder than anything in the house. I opened it slowly. Inside was a small room, bare, dim. No windows, no furniture, just a square of space that shouldn't have existed. It was the kind of room nightmares use as a waiting room. And yet, the air smelled like her perfume, a soft, fading trace of lavender and something floral I could never name. A scent that used to cling to our pillows, our sheets, my shirt collar after she hugged me. My knees weakened. I stepped inside. The air felt warmer, as though the room was holding its breath with me. On the far wall, faint scratches marked the paint. I moved closer, squinting, until I realized they weren't scratches at all. They were words, handwritten, messy, shaken. I wish I had met you differently. My chest tightened, my vision blurred. The handwriting, it was hers, but the ink was dry, old, like the message had been written long before she left. Impossible. Completely impossible. Confusion wrapped itself around my ribs like a tightening rope. I stepped back, breathing hard, trying to understand how she could have written something in a room I had never entered, in a space that should not have existed. The room felt alive, not haunted, but aware. A grief echo, a memory imprint, a place where emotions trapped themselves when they had nowhere else to go. I closed the door gently, my hand shaking. And when I stepped into the hallway again, the house seemed larger, emptier, hungrier. I whispered her name once like a test. The shadows swallowed it whole. A voice in the static. I couldn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the message on the wall. I wish I had met you differently. The words pulsed behind my eyelids, as though they were still being written somewhere inside my mind. Around 4 a.m., when exhaustion tasted metallic on my tongue, I turned on the TV just to drown out the silence. I wasn't watching anything. The noise was the point, but the screen flickered strangely, static, a white hiss, like the television was trying to tune into something that wasn't a channel. Then, beneath the static, a whisper, soft, almost too soft to hear. Lucas. My blood iced over. I leaned forward, heart pounding like something trapped in a cage. Don't close the door. The voice was faint, broken, like it was traveling through miles of interference. But it was her exact voice, her exact tone from the nights she cried in my arms. Evelyn, I whispered, throat tightening. The screen flickered again. The static grew louder. Then, you weren't supposed to see that room. My mouth went dry. Evelyn, where are you? My voice cracked. What's happening to you? A long pause, then almost too quietly, I don't know. The static swallowed the sentence. I stood there, trembling, staring at a ghost that wasn't a ghost, speaking through a device that shouldn't be able to carry her. The TV finally went dark. My reflection stared back at me, pale, hollow-eyed, broken. And I realized something terrifying. Even after leaving me, even after destroying our marriage, she was still tangled in my life in ways I could not explain, in ways that defied reason, in ways that echoed the room with no windows, in ways that made me wonder whether grief could warp reality itself. I needed answers, but answers hurt more than ignorance. Still, I whispered her name again, into the empty room, hoping the TV would flicker back to life. It didn't. The silence returned, thick as syrup, suffocating, and I knew then that losing her was only the beginning. A heart that won't stay buried. The next morning I woke with the uneasy sense that someone had been standing at the foot of my bed while I slept. The air felt stirred, the sheets cool where warmth should have been. I sat up abruptly, breath shaking. The room was empty. Of course it was, but emptiness felt like a lie now. A curtain pulled over something alive and waiting. I went to the hallway. The strange door was gone, where the frame had been, where the smell of her perfume had hung in the air. There was now solid wall. White paint, smooth surface, no seam, no sign of any door ever existing. I pressed my palm against it. Warm, too warm. A pulse throbbed faintly beneath the plaster, like the wall itself had a heartbeat. I stumbled backward, nausea swirling in my gut. Grief can feel like madness. Loss can feel like hallucination. But walls do not breathe. Rooms do not appear and vanish. Voices do not speak through static from miles away. Unless sorrow is not just emotion, but something with teeth. The phantom call. I tried to leave the house that day. I needed distance, air, anything that didn't feel like the walls were watching me. I grabbed my keys, opened the front door, stepped out, and my phone rang. Her ringtone, the one she set herself, the one I never changed. I stared at the screen. Evelyn, her name glowing. Impossible. She had blocked me. I had deleted her. Her phone was disconnected. My hand shook violently as I answered. Hello? At first, nothing. No breathing, no background noise. Then, a fragile whisper. Lucas. I pressed the phone harder to my ear. Evelyn? Where are you? A moment of static. Then, I thought it would be easier if I left. Her voice was small, broken, like she was speaking from a hospital bed or the bottom of a well. It wasn't, she whispered. My throat tightened. Where are you? Please, just tell me where. She didn't answer immediately. When I left you, she breathed, I didn't go far. I tried to go somewhere I could forget. But forgetting you is like trying to forget my own shadow. I gripped the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles burned. Why are you calling me now? A long silence, then barely audible. Because he called me first. I froze. Who? She inhaled shakily, the sound of someone terrified of their own answer. Your father. My entire body went cold. What did he say? I demanded. Her voice cracked. He said I needed to tell you the truth before it was too late. Too late? Too late for what? Evelyn, I said, heart hammering. What truth? The line glitched, sharp static, a sound like a scream swallowed by distortion. Then silence. Evelyn? Nothing. Evelyn. The call ended itself. I stared at the phone until the screen went dark. A hollow feeling opened inside me. Wide, cold, endless. She wasn't just calling because she missed me. She wasn't just calling because she regretted leaving. She was calling because something was happening. Something neither of us understood. Something involving my father. The door returns. That night I didn't sleep. I paced the house like a caged animal, glancing at the walls every few minutes, waiting for something to shift, waiting for the room to return, waiting for her voice to slip in through the cracks of the world again. Hours passed. Then I heard it. Click. A soft latch. A door opening. I turned slowly, every muscle in my body locked. The door, the one that had vanished, was back. Not quietly this time. Not subtle. It stood wide open as though someone had walked through it only seconds before. The scent of her perfume drifted out. Stronger now, fresher, as if she were on the other side of the doorway, just out of sight. I should have turned away. I should have run. But love makes fools of men. Grief makes them fearless. I stepped into the room. It looked different now, no longer empty. Now there was a small table in the center. On it lay a single object, her wedding ring. My breath died in my throat. I picked it up slowly, feeling its weight, a tiny circle of metal that once meant forever, but now felt like an anchor tied to my heart. The ring was warm, almost hot, as though it had been held tightly in someone's fist only moments earlier. Inside the band, new words were engraved, words that hadn't been there before. I tried to choose you. My vision blurred instantly. A sob caught in my chest, but refused to come out. And then, from behind me, a whisper. Lucas. I spun around. The doorway was gone. Bricked over, sealed, solid wall, trapping me inside a room that should not exist. My pulse thundered. I pressed my hand against the wall. It was firm, immovable. Evelyn, I shouted. Where are you? Silence. Then, from somewhere behind the wall, a faint, distant reply. I'm sorry. I staggered backward, the ring still clutched in my shaking hand. Something was wrong. Something was deeply wrong, and I was caught in the middle of it. The house breathes. Minutes, or maybe hours, passed before the wall behind me softened again, the doorway peeling itself back into existence. As soon as I stepped out, the door slammed shut on its own, the sound echoing through the house like a gunshot. I didn't dare open it again. I leaned against the hallway wall, sliding down until I hit the floor, my breath shaking out of me in violent tremors. The house was alive, and I had no idea what it wanted, but I knew this: it wasn't finished with me. Not yet, not even close. The key she never gave me, sleep became something I remembered instead of experienced. I sat awake for hours, staring at the wall where Evelyn's handprint had appeared. I half expected it to return, half feared it would. But the wall stayed blank, a white, silent betrayal. By dawn, exhaustion gnawed at me like an animal chewing bone. I stumbled to the kitchen for water, but when I opened the drawer to grab a glass, there it was, a small brass key. Old, scratched, bent slightly at the tip. I lifted it slowly, heart hammering. It felt warm, too warm, as though it had been held tightly in someone's fist only moments before. There was a tag attached, a single word handwritten in ink that looked smeared by tears. For when you're ready. I staggered backward, nearly dropping the key. She had been here. She had touched this. She had left it behind. But why hide it? Why give me something only after she'd vanished? And what could it possibly open? The house seemed to lean in, listening to my thoughts, waiting for my next move. "Evelyn," I whispered, gripping the key tightly. "What did you want me to find?" The lights flickered, once, twice. Then the hallway went dark. I heard a soft click, like a lock sliding open somewhere inside the walls. Not the strange room, not the closet, not any door I recognized, a different door, one I had never noticed before. And when I stepped into the hallway, it was there, a narrow wooden door with peeling paint, but not the original one. Different shape, different position, different height, as if the house rearranged itself during the night. Above the handle, etched into the wood with a sharp object, was a phrase: "Truth comes last." My chest tightened painfully. The key fit perfectly. My father's return. I don't know how long I sat in that room. Minutes, hours, some fragment of time that didn't feel real. But eventually I heard footsteps. Slow. Deliberate. Familiar. I stood up, gripping the doorframe for balance as my father stepped into the hallway. "Lucas," he said softly, "you found the room." I stared at him. "You knew," I said. "Yes." "You knew she loved you." "Yes." "You knew she was falling apart because of it." Quietly. "Yes." "And you didn't stop her." He closed his eyes, something I'd rarely seen him do. "I thought she would choose you," he said. "I refused her, Lucas. I told her she was chasing someone who didn't exist. I told her to stay away." My hands balled into fists. "But you knew she wouldn't listen." He hesitated, and that hesitation was the truth. "She came to me," he said, "before your wedding. She said she needed closure. She said she had to see me one last time before she could marry you." Something inside my chest cracked, something raw and bleeding. "She came to you." My voice shook with rage. He stepped closer. "Yes." "And what did you do?" I asked, the words trembling between my teeth. "Did you comfort her, hold her, tell her she was special?" "No," he said firmly. "I told her to leave. I told her she was breaking you before you even had the chance to become a husband. I told her I would not be part of her fantasy." "Then why did she leave me?" His gaze softened, something I had never seen in him before. "Because she couldn't forgive herself," he murmured. "And the house reflects what we can't forgive." My blood went cold. "The house?" I whispered. "What do you mean?" He stepped into the doorway of the memory room. "This house wasn't built for living, Lucas," he said quietly. "It was built for remembering." The walls groaned softly, like something inside them was waking. Or listening. Or hungry. "What is this place?" I demanded. He looked at me with a haunted expression. "Your mother's house," he said quietly. "The place where she lost herself to the past. The place where I found her writing messages on the walls to someone who wasn't there." I froze. "My mother?" I whispered. "She heard voices," he said gently. "Just like you're hearing her now." A cold, electric shock ran through my entire body. "My mother heard Evelyn." He shook his head slowly. "No, she heard me." My breath caught. "And now," he said softly, "you're hearing Evelyn." The house creaked again, long, low, mournful, like it agreed. The truth beneath everything. "Why did you leave me?" I asked, the words trembling. She wrapped her arms around herself, as though trying to hold together pieces of a breaking form. "Because you deserved someone who wasn't torn between two men," she whispered. "You deserved someone whole." "You could have told me," I said. "We could have fixed it, worked on it. Something." She shook her head, tears flickering like static on her fading cheeks. "You didn't see yourself the way I saw you," she said. "You were already living in your father's shadow. If I told you the truth, you'd think you were nothing but a consolation prize." I stepped closer, slowly, fearing she might break if I moved too fast. "You weren't unhappy with me?" I whispered. "Not always." "No," she said, voice trembling. "But I was ashamed, and shame is corrosive. It eats through everything. It ate through me. It ate through us. And when I walked out the door, the shame stayed here, in your house. And the house never lets go of anything that's dying inside someone." "And what about you?" I whispered. "Are you dying inside me?" She closed her eyes. "Yes." "And if I let go?" She opened her eyes, and they were full of pain deeper than anything human. "Then I stop existing here, and maybe I get to exist again out there." I stared at her trembling outline, her flickering, her fading form, her sorrow. And then she said, "Lucas, you can't save me, but you can free me." My throat tightened. "How?" She slowly lifted her hand and pointed back toward the door. "The truth is behind you, in him." A cold dread washed over me. "You mean my father?" She nodded. "The house is holding both of us, your guilt, my guilt, his guilt, like tangled roots under the floor." I clenched my fists. "What truth am I supposed to face?" She took one shaking step toward me. She reached her hand out, the edges of her fingers flickering like candle flame. But before she could touch me, the hallway groaned violently, shaking the floorboards. Her form flickered rapidly. "No, no, not yet," she gasped, as if being pulled backward by an invisible force. "Evelyn," I shouted. "Find the truth," she cried, "before the house replaces me completely." Then, in a sound like a paper tearing, she vanished. The hallway collapsed into darkness. The door behind me slammed shut, and I was alone. Completely, devastatingly alone. The things my father never said when the door behind me slammed shut, the darkness swallowed me whole. Not gentle darkness, not the kind that feels like night. This was the kind of darkness that feels like a mouth, closing around you slowly, deliberately, hungrily. I pressed my back to the wall, feeling its slow, unnatural breathing. The house wasn't just shifting now, it was reacting. I could feel the vibrations of my father's voice somewhere distant, muffled behind layers of wood and memory. "Lucas," he shouted, "find the doorknob." But his voice sounded underwater, distant, distorted, like something was swallowing his words before they reached me. I slid my hands along the wall, desperate, searching. The wall pulsed once, twice, like a heart beating beneath the plaster, and then a cold whisper brushed my ear. Not that way. My blood froze. It wasn't Evelyn's voice. It wasn't my father's voice. It was something older, something the house had invented. A version of her, a version of me, a version of us. A memory logic older than either of us. I shut my eyes tightly. "Stop," I whispered to the dark. "Stop trying to be her." The voice giggled softly, a broken, echoing sound that scraped across my nerves. "But you made me," it purred. "You remember her, and what you remember, I become." The floor vibrated beneath my feet. The wood seemed to crawl, shifting like something beneath it was stretching awake. Then, a second voice joined the first, my father's voice, but wrong, off, like a recording slowed down. "Come this way, son." My throat tightened. "No," I whispered. "You're not him." More whispering filled the dark, voices slipping in and out like threads being pulled from fabric. Fragments of my past, snippets of arguments, words I wished I'd said, words I never said, words I should have never heard. Finally, the wall behind me cracked open like a rib cage splitting. A sliver of light leaked through. My father's hand shot into the darkness, not a flicker, not a memory. His real hand. "Lucas," he said urgently, "take my hand." I grabbed it without hesitation. Something cold grabbed my ankle, something that felt like fingers made of wood and sorrow. But my father yanked me hard, pulling me through the crack in the wall. The room snapped shut behind me with a thunderous, living groan. I collapsed onto the hallway floor, shaking violently, lungs burning. My father knelt beside me, gripping my shoulders. "Lucas," he said, breathless, "you can't go in there alone. Not that room, not the one the house creates when it wants something." I looked up at him slowly. "What does it want?" I whispered. He swallowed. "You." The first lie. We sat on the hallway floor for a long moment, both of us breathing hard, as if we'd outrun something monstrous. My father ran a hand through his hair, the first time I had ever seen it shake. "I should have destroyed this place years ago," he whispered. "You owned this house before I did?" He nodded stiffly. "Yes, it was your mother's family home. She inherited it before we met. I hated it from the moment I stepped inside." I stared at him. "Why didn't you tell me that?" He exhaled deeply. "Because I wanted you to have something of her, something that didn't feel broken." A bitter smile twisted my lips. "Well, you failed." He didn't argue. He didn't defend himself. He simply lowered his gaze. "Lucas," he said quietly, "there's something you need to understand. Your mother didn't just vanish. She wasn't swallowed by magic or supernatural forces. The house didn't eat her. Then what happened?" He looked at me with haunting clarity. "She walked into a memory she couldn't forgive herself for, and she refused to walk back out." The words hit me like a punch to the chest. "Explain," I whispered. He gestured for us to stand, and as we walked down the hallway, lights flickering like dying stars, he told me, "Your mother thought I loved someone else," he said. "Long before you were born. A woman I never touched, never kissed. But she saw the way I looked at her once. Just once." I froze. My father continued. "She spent years convinced she wasn't enough. She imagined conversations where I told her I wanted that woman. She imagined arguments, betrayals, lies. And the house showed her those memories," I whispered. He nodded. "And eventually, she chose the version of reality that hurt her most, because pain feels truer than love when you're broken." I swallowed hard, and she disappeared into it. "Yes," he said quietly. "And the day I found her, she wasn't really gone." "What do you mean?" He clenched his jaw. "She stood in front of me," he said, and asked why I hadn't chosen her. My breath caught. And? He closed his eyes. I told her the truth, he whispered, that I had chosen her. Every day. But the house had convinced her I hadn't. She didn't believe me. I felt something crack inside my chest. She turned, he said, voice trembling, and walked into a room that wasn't there anymore. And the house closed behind her. I never saw her again. The hallway creaked, a slow, mournful groan, like the house remembered her too. The pattern repeats. I leaned against the wall, overwhelmed. So you're telling me Evelyn is repeating what Mom did? Not intentionally, he said softly. But yes, the house is feeding on the same kind of unresolved heartbreak, the same guilt, the same shame. Tears stung my eyes. So how do we stop it? I whispered. My father looked away. That's the part I never figured out. My breath trembled. But you said the truth is behind you, I repeated. You said Evelyn pointed me toward you. He nodded. She did. So tell me, I said, voice shaking. Tell me whatever Mom never heard, whatever she needed to know, whatever Evelyn needs me to understand. My father took a long, slow breath. Lucas, he said gently, you need to know the first lie. What lie? The one you were born into. My stomach dropped. What are you talking about? He hesitated, for the first time in my life genuinely afraid of his own words. Lucas, he whispered, you need to understand something about Evelyn. And about me. My heart pounded violently. What? His voice was a strained whisper. She didn't love me. He paused. She loved the man she thought I was. Another pause. But the reason she felt connected to me, before she ever met you. I swallowed. Say it, I whispered. He closed his eyes. Is because she knew me. My blood froze. My father's next words shattered the world. Evelyn knew me long before you were born. I stared at him, breath trapped in my throat. But she would have been a child, I whispered. He nodded. She was. My pulse thundered. What are you saying? He exhaled shakily. I was her mother's therapist, her father's friend. I watched her grow up. She idolized me, and when she grew older, she confused admiration with love. The hallway tilted, my vision blurred. She followed you, he said softly. She married you, because you reminded her of me. Air fled my lungs. She didn't know how to let go of the fantasy she built when she was young, and the moment she saw me again at your engagement dinner, everything she'd buried came back. I staggered backward. No, I whispered. No, that can't be true. It is true, my father said quietly, and the house knows it. The hallway lights flickered violently, the air tightening around us like the house itself was holding its breath. Lucas, he whispered, you aren't trapped because of her guilt. He placed a hand over my chest. You're trapped because of your own. The guilt I did not know I carried. The world didn't just tilt, it split. A slow tear down the middle of everything I believed about my life. I stared at my father, unable to breathe, unable to blink. Me? I whispered. My guilt? He nodded slowly, regret heavy in his eyes. Yes, Lucas, yours. My throat tightened until it hurt to swallow. How can any of this be my fault? She loved you. She was obsessed with you. She married me because she wanted a version of you she could have. He sighed deeply. It's not about fault, he murmured. It's about what you never allowed yourself to acknowledge. I acknowledged everything, I snapped. I lived with the humiliation, the betrayal, the way she looked at you. I lived with it every damn day and... He held up a hand. No, you lived with anger. Not truth, not grief, not the part beneath the anger. My voice cracked. What part? He pointed to the wall behind me, the same place Evelyn's handprint once appeared. The part where you always believed, he whispered, that you were her second choice. The words struck like a blade, deep, precise, right into the part of me I never looked at too closely. I stumbled back. No, I whispered. No, I didn't believe that. You did, he said quietly. From the moment you saw the way she looked at me at the dinner, from the moment she asked questions about me, from the moment you read her letter. I shook my head violently. No, stop. The house doesn't invent pain, he said softly. It amplifies what's already there. The floorboards groaned beneath us, creaking like a spine twisting. And what you carried, he continued, was the belief that you were less. My breath shook out of me. And she, he said, carried the same belief, except reversed. She always believed she wasn't enough for you because she could never escape the fantasy she built as a child. Pain swelled in my chest, heavy, suffocating, devouring. So the house took both of your wounds, he said, and built rooms out of them, doors out of them, voices out of them. I sank to the floor, my hands shaking. The realization was slow and brutal. I wasn't just haunted by Evelyn's guilt. I was haunted by my own. I had kept a quiet resentment, a belief I'd never voiced, not to her, not to myself, not even to the shadows at night, that I was forever competing with the ghost of a man she built in her youth. And I always feared I would lose. My father knelt beside me, not commanding, not cold, human. Lucas, he whispered, you loved her, truly, but you never believed she could love you as deeply as she loved her idea of me. That belief anchored her to this place. My vision blurred with tears. So, I whispered, the house is keeping her here because I can't let go of the idea that she never truly chose me? He nodded. And because she can't let go of the idea that she hurt you beyond forgiveness. The hallway dimmed, lights fluttered, walls creaked like lungs exhaling. Evelyn's trapped, he said, between your belief that you were second best and her belief that she broke you beyond repair. A quiet, trembling voice filled the hall, not from behind a wall, not from the floor, but from everywhere at once. Lucas. I froze. Evelyn. My father's eyes widened. She's close. I'm sorry, she whispered. Her voice vibrated the air, soft as breath against skin. I never wanted you to feel small. Tears spilled over my cheeks. Then why did you? Because I felt smaller than you, she whispered. Smaller than him. Smaller than the past. Smaller than everything. I didn't leave to hurt you. I left because I was afraid of what I was becoming. Her outline flickered into view at the end of the hall, blurred, translucent, half-formed. Lucas, she whispered, I'm not the girl who idolized your father anymore. I haven't been that person for years. I just didn't know how to tell you I hated who I had become. My chest shattered open. Then come back, I said. Come back to me. She shook her head, the faintest, most sorrowful motion. I can't, she whispered. Not yet. Why not? The house trembled, a deep, rattling warning. Because one truth is still missing, she murmured. One thing your father hasn't told you, one thing I tried to tell you but couldn't. I turned to my father sharply. What is she talking about? His face went white. Lucas, he whispered, don't. But Evelyn cut him off. You need to ask him, she said softly, why he recognized me at the engagement dinner. A cold dread seeped through my bones. I thought he recognized me, she whispered. But that was the first lie. The hallway groaned, the lights dimmed, her silhouette flickered wildly. Ask him, she whispered, why he knew my name before I ever spoke it. And then, She vanished again, leaving me alone with a father who suddenly looked like a man cornered by his own past. My voice came out broken. "Dad," I whispered, "why did you know her name?" He closed his eyes, defeated. Broken, haunted, and when he opened them, the truth behind them was so heavy it nearly knocked me backwards. "Lucas," he said quietly, "sit down, because what I'm about to tell you will break you." The confession that shattered everything. I sat, not because he asked, but because my legs could no longer hold the weight of dread. My father remained standing for a long moment, staring at the floor as though the truth were carved somewhere in the wood. His shoulders sagged, a posture I had never seen him wear, a posture of defeat. Finally, he lifted his eyes to mine. "Lucas," he whispered, "I didn't recognize Evelyn from her childhood. I recognized her from something much worse." My breath caught. "Worse?" I echoed. He nodded. "She wasn't just my patient's daughter," he said slowly. "She wasn't just someone who idolized me. She was—" His jaw tightened, his hands curled into fists. "Someone I failed." A chill rippled through me. "What do you mean?" I whispered. He closed his eyes for a long moment. Then he walked to the wall, placed his hand against it, and said, "There was a night," he began, "many years ago, long before you were born, when her father called me at 2 in the morning." I frowned. "Why would he call you?" My father swallowed. "Because," he whispered, "Evelyn had disappeared." The night she ran away, the hallway darkened as he spoke, the lights dimming like the house itself was listening, leaning in, hungry for the retelling. "She was only 14, he said. Young, fragile, too intelligent for her own good. And she attached herself to me, in a way she didn't understand." My stomach twisted. She believed I was the only adult who truly saw her. And her parents? They didn't notice, or didn't care. They were constantly fighting, constantly breaking each other. His eyes drifted into a memory. One night, after one of their worst arguments, she packed a bag and ran away. She left a note saying she was going to find me, that I was the only one who could save her. I felt sick. "You never told me this," I whispered. "I never told anyone," he said, "because when I found her—" He stopped, breath trembling. "Where?" I asked. "Where did you find her?" His voice cracked. "Here." A shock jolted through me. "In this house?" I whispered, horrified. He nodded slowly. "She found this place. Somehow. I don't know how. She had never been here, had no reason to know this address. But she found it, and she was inside when I arrived." My pulse thundered. "And what did you do?" He exhaled shakily. "I brought her home. I told her she was confused, scared, hurting. I told her she couldn't rely on me like that. I told her I cared about her future. Nothing more. And she believed you?" "No," he whispered. "She was devastated. And after that night, she began to forget, or forced herself to forget. Trauma erases memories when they hurt too much." My chest tightened. "So when she saw you again as an adult," I murmured, "she didn't remember that night?" He nodded. "She remembered only the feeling, the longing, the attachment, but not the event that created it." "And you?" I asked. "Did you remember her?" His voice dropped to a pained whisper. "Yes, the moment she walked into the engagement dinner, I knew exactly who she was." My breath escaped in a sharp, broken gasp. "Dad," I whispered, fighting the horror rising in me. "Why didn't you tell me? Why didn't you say anything?" He closed his eyes. "Because she didn't recognize me, and because I was terrified you would think I had taken advantage of her, that I had led her on, that I had been inappropriate." I stared at him. "Were you?" I whispered. "No," he said firmly, opening his eyes. "Never. Not once. I only ever tried to protect her, but that night broke something in her, something she never mended. I ran a hand through my hair, dizzy. So the reason she loved you, I whispered, the reason she was drawn to you, it wasn't romantic. It wasn't even real. It was trauma. He nodded painfully. And when she met me, I said, voice cracking, I reminded her of you, not because of who I was, but because of who she paired you with in her mind. My father didn't answer. He didn't need to. Every part of me already knew. The house wasn't dying. It was ending the story we'd trapped inside it. I stepped closer to Evelyn as she flickered, her edges dissolving into drifting sparks of gold. Evelyn, I whispered, choking on the words, I loved you, even when it hurt, even when I didn't understand, even when you didn't understand yourself. Her fading hand reached for mine. You freed me, she whispered. By learning the truth, by letting go of the version of me trapped in this place. My heart broke open. But where will you go? I asked. Where is your real body? Are you alive? Are you... Her smile was soft, sad, unbearably gentle. I'm alive, Lucas. Out there, lost, trying to become someone new. Someone who isn't haunted by this house. She leaned close, her voice fading with her form. And you need to live without the weight of a woman who never knew how to stay. The house groaned, a long, final sigh. Her form dissolved completely, a swirl of gold lifting like dust in sunlight, then gone. The walls collapsed inward, not violently, but tenderly, like closing eyelids. My father grabbed my arm. We ran. The door burst open behind us, and we stumbled out into the cold morning air. And then, in complete silence, the house folded into itself, slowly, gently, impossibly, until it collapsed into nothing but a dark, empty foundation. No rubble, no wood, no walls, just earth. The house was gone. The real end. We stood there, my father and I, breathing in the cold air. Broken, exhausted, free. Was she real? I whispered finally. The Evelyn in the house? Yes, he said softly. A part of her. The part trapped by guilt. The part you both needed to release. And the real Evelyn? He looked out at the empty ground. She's out there, he murmured. And now she can finally heal. I closed my eyes, and for the first time, in years, my chest didn't feel like a graveyard. I lost her. Yes, but I also let her go. Not the fantasy, not the fear, not the version of her built from pain. The real her. And that was the only kind of love that ever truly saves a person.